Hello everyone. The presentation is about the impact of current school disciplinary policies in the context of the state-level marijuana policies on adolescents' perceptions of marijuana. Let's take a look. Let me say healthy adolescents, healthy community. Adolescence is a period in which adolescents are more likely to be influenced by their social context in response to risk exposure. Therefore, marijuana policies indirectly influence adolescents. Let's examine easy accessibility, availability, attractive products, and advertising exposure in relation to a shift in policies across the United States. Marijuana state laws have led to a significant expansion of the marijuana industry, with more available and attractive products like vape pens, edibles, etc. The marijuana policies that allow its sale indirectly affect the shift toward pro-marijuana attitudes among adolescents because of the normalization context in which they develop. This implies that adolescents are impacted by these laws that change the landscape of marijuana, which in turn leads to a new, more permissive marijuana culture that influences adolescents' interaction and experiences. As more states in the United States legalize marijuana use, the perception of normalcy regarding marijuana among adolescents may increase because of their interpretation that marijuana legalization is associated with social acceptability or safety. Adolescents perceive marijuana use as more socially acceptable, more beneficial, and less dangerous than cigarette use. For example, in Colorado, one of the first states that legalized marijuana for recreational use in 2012, adolescents described marijuana as natural and less harmful and addictive than other drugs and medications. Adolescent students reported perceived easy access 1 year after marijuana was legalized in Colorado. Another study found that states with longer marijuana legalization and a higher number of dispensaries were associated with earlier initiation of marijuana, specifically vaping and edibles. In a focus group study, adolescents who consume edibles, in comparison to those who use other methods of using marijuana, were more likely to have used marijuana at school in the past 30 days, and alarmingly were more likely to initiate marijuana at an early age. Marijuana products are easily available and accessible from different sources. Adolescents reported that they bought edibles at school from other students and that they also prepared their own edibles. Adolescents also reported that edibles are convenient, undetectable, discreet, not harmful, and easy to transport. Regarding vaping, a study found that adolescents were able to obtain vaping supplies from friends, vape shops, and gas stations, and that some adolescents were not asked for identification to verify their age. Adolescents also reported that vaping at school was easy, and they do it before, during, and after school. Related to the use of flavors, an important point is that the use of flavored marijuana products contributes to marijuana use because it has better tasting. In addition, packaging can be appealing to adolescents, and the use of fruit names may contribute to adolescent misperception that these products are healthy. Regarding exposure to advertisement, adolescents reported that advertisements that display the keywords like free or $1 deals are appealing and motivate them to buy it. Adolescents also reported wanting to imitate behaviors shown in advertisements with eye-catching designs and images of people having fun in social situations. Let's talk about school disciplinary policies and the practices of suspension and expulsion for drug offenses. School disciplinary policies influence how schools address student behaviors. What is the historical context of zero-tolerance school policies? Since 1993, zero-tolerance discipline policies have been implemented to address serious and minor offenses and keep violence, drug activity, and misbehavior out of all school campuses in the United States. Congress passed the law Gun-Free Schools Act of 1994, which required schools to implement this policy, and failure to do so would result in the loss of federal funding. By 1996, most school districts implemented this policy and expanded it to include minor misconduct offenses. Since then, school administrators have used disciplinary policies to punish students for serious and minor offenses with equal severity, depriving students of an education. Schools in the United States continue to adopt a zero-tolerance drug policy to address possession or use of illicit drugs. Districts with higher rates of minority students are more likely to use exclusionary practices, which aligns with recent research suggesting that these practices don't benefit either students or schools. There is evidence that suspension and expulsion measures don't contribute to students' behavior change or school safety. This punitive approach in the school context affects students' engagement and academic performance, as well as puts adolescents at higher risk of dropping out of school or being involved in the juvenile justice system. Studies found that the students who experience suspension may be more likely to engage in criminal behaviors and be arrested. It's important to take into account that marijuana use is associated with cognitive impairments such as attention, memory, processing, even when they are not intoxicated, as well as mood alteration. Now, let's provide some data. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, during the school year 2019-2020, 58% of public high schools took serious disciplinary action in response to drug possession, distribution, or use, ranging from suspension for 5 or more days, 59.1%, suspension for the remainder of the school year, 4.3%, or transfer to alternative schools, 24.4%. This shows that, unfortunately, with this punitive approach, if a student is found in possession, distribution, or use of drugs, for example, marijuana, on the school property, the school principal has the right to expel the student because of serious drug-related misbehavior at the school. Regarding marijuana availability in the school settings, in 2019, approximately 22% of the students in grades 9 to 12 reported being offered, given, or sold illegal drugs on school property. It's also interesting to note that a longitudinal study found that marijuana use was higher in schools that adopted an out-of-school suspension drug policy than in those that adopted a counseling approach. Federal level in the United States, marijuana is classified as a Schedule I drug under the Controlled Substances Act. However, many states have legalized marijuana for recreational or medical use, resulting in a legal status that varies by state. Estimating that marijuana is considered the most common drug used by adolescents, and that the legal landscape surrounding marijuana has changed, it should not be considered a serious offense in schools. The legalization of marijuana has normalized a context of permissive use, with schools facing challenges in addressing current methods of marijuana use, such as vaping and edibles. New state laws decriminalize marijuana use, while schools continue to impose exclusionary disciplinary actions on school grounds for marijuana use each year. It's important to say that in a study, parents expressed the need to educate their children with interventions implemented in schools. There is a clear need for school districts to implement specific marijuana policies that reflect disciplinary measures through education to prevent marijuana use in adolescents and to ensure that students have the opportunity to learn. An educational policy will contribute to a better understanding of the current changing patterns of marijuana use, which have led to a decrease in the perception of negative consequences. At the same time, students will be allowed to engage in supportive conversations to clarify misconceptions about marijuana. Educators will provide students with accurate knowledge and clear and age-appropriate messages about marijuana and its potential dangers. With this approach, schools will promote a safer and healthier future for their students, supporting families and communities. Considering that the school-based programs are associated with a reduction in marijuana use among adolescents, it's hypothesized that implementing a school marijuana-related educational policy as a preventive measure will be more effective in addressing and increasing adolescents' perceived risk associated with marijuana than punitive responses implemented in schools. Methods. Participants. The criteria will focus on adolescent students from the U.S. public middle and high schools, with a population of enrolled public school students about 26.6 million as of fall 2023. Materials. Empirical studies will be selective if they focus on marijuana policies, school disciplinary policies, and the impact on adolescent marijuana use and perception of marijuana. The inclusion criteria will be studies analyzing exclusionary discipline, law enforcement-based, or restorative responses to address substance use, as long as they specify marijuana use on school grounds. And 2, studies conducted in any geographic location, as long as the data includes school policies in the United States. Also, the year of publication will be limited to the last 15 years to reflect emerging trends in marijuana and its shift towards social and legal normalization. Procedure. Marijuana and school policies will be shared in different databases, will be used keywords to identify relevant studies, and it will be read in full to verify their relevance. For the plan analysis, a table will organize and visualize research-based findings from previous studies to better understand the gap between current school disciplinary policies regarding marijuana use and the evolving landscape of state-level marijuana legalization and decriminalization, which indirectly affect adolescents' perception of marijuana. Content analysis will be conducted as a qualitative method to identify sample characteristics, the study purpose, key findings, main effects, and conclusions from each study. This analysis will provide important insights into the implication of current marijuana state laws and existing school disciplinary policies and procedures to give meaning to the collected data and guide decision-making relating to marijuana. It's time to invest in marijuana education to ensure adolescents have the opportunity to make informed decisions. Thank you.